So I'll get to the Harbaugh thing in a second. I was saying, listen, I don't think Arians and Brady are the perfect couple. I mean, they are different. Brady's very efficient, detail-oriented, the short pass game, he mastered it. Arians is more go deep, blah, blah, blah. But I look at Tom's numbers this morning, and he's 65%, 95 passer rating. They've been inconsistent, but outside of that Bears and Saints game, you mostly get 29 points a game without many, here's the numbers, 95 passer rating, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. I do think, I'll throw this out at you and have you respond to this. I do think it's possible, Arians has retired before, if they struggled over the next 4 games, one and done in the playoffs, and looked ugly, I could see Arians stepping aside and a Josh McDaniels get a shot, or a Brian Dable, a younger guy. But in the end, are we making too much of the Arians-Brady struggles?
No, I mean, I look, when you go and you sign Tom Brady, you're implicitly telling everybody we're competing for a championship. You don't sign a guy at 43 years old if you don't feel like that's where you're at. And right now, they're not at that level. And I do think that there's some frustration on the part of Brady. And yeah, the numbers are there, Colin. But remember, the bar for him is way up here as far as individual performance goes. And this is a very, very different offense. So I think you're starting to see signs that Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich are starting to bend a little bit to the way Brady wants to run the offense. But, having talked to some people around the league, I know that really the perception is that they're not running an offense right now. They're just running plays. And Brady's used to having such a comprehensive offense that has answers to everything, that marries the run game to the pass game, all of that stuff. And so I think that's where some of Brady's frustration comes from. And I think it's important. Somebody pointed this out to me last week, to look at some of the older quarterbacks who've been in this situation. Brett Favre, when he went to Minnesota, Darrell Bevell was there. Darrell Bevell had been his position coach in Green Bay. Peyton Manning goes to Denver, right? They try to meld, Mike McCoy's offensive system for about a half year with what Peyton Manning did in Indianapolis. And they got to midseason, and they were just sort of like, the hell with it. We're going to run Peyton Manning's offense. They wound up running a version of what he'd done in Indianapolis. And so I think with these older quarterbacks, in each of these cases, you see where the team comes to a realization. The best thing to do is to let the guy do what he does best. And hopefully the Bucs are starting to come to that realization, and maybe this becomes more Tom Brady's show than it has been.
You live in the Northeast. You know the Patriots well, and I lived there for over 10 years and watched every Patriot snap. And I said, these wins over teams like Arizona feel great in the moment, but right now they draft about 15th. And I looked this morning, in the top 13 teams that are picking, I counted 5. Jets, Jags, obviously. Teams like Chicago probably draft a quarterback. I said here, Jets, Jags draft a quarterback. Washington football team drafts a quarterback. Denver, I think, has to consider it with how good quarterback play is in their division. And then I think Chicago and Minnesota would both roll the dice and draft, maybe not a roll the dice, and the Patriots at 15. I guess I'm asking you this. New England's probably going to win a game or two. They're not going to get inside 10. There's about 5 first-round quarterbacks. What are their options today? Are they going to re-sign Cam?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I guess what you're asking is, are the Patriots turning themselves into the 45-win NBA team?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that there's some merit in that argument. I would just tell you, I think Belichick has to have this program competitive. I think it's a hard program to sell to players. And for everything to come undone in year one and not be competitive in year one coming out of the Tom Brady era, I think would make it very, very difficult for him to sell what's a very demanding program to players. Because remember, high school kids, college kids, outside of the kids who play at Alabama, really aren't coming up the way that they used to. And so I think Belichick has to keep the program competitive. I think that's more important than just finding the next quarterback. So I think what the best course of action here has been, will be, going forward for the Patriots, is finding somebody that they're comfortable with, whether it's Cam or someone else, for the next 2 or 3 years, and then eventually going all out to go and get one. And I think the perfect parallel, Colin, is what Alex Smith was in Kansas City, where they had him. They knew he wasn't going to be their quarterback for the next 10 years, but he bought them time to find the next one, to pick their spot and go after somebody they really loved. And so I think Cam, there's still a chance he can be that guy for New England, but I think their best course of action is to find that guy so they're not forced to overreach for one in 2021. And look, I mean, it's a strategy I think you're seeing Carolina employ too with Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's a smart way to go. And, they hope that Cam can be that guy going into 2021. But if he can't be, maybe it's somebody like, I don't know, like a Matthew Stafford or someone like that.
I got to ask you about Jim Harbaugh. Again, this is just the overreaction Tuesday where now Harbaugh suddenly is a bum and can't coach. I think he probably stays at Michigan. He makes a ton of money. He has total control. And I think COVID has unraveled a lot of people. It's unraveled Penn State. I mean, it's just the reality is some have reacted well to it and some have not. But if do you think there'll be a team out there that calls Harbaugh? Somebody jump out to you?
Yeah. The one team that jumps out to me is the New York Jets. I've been told consistently over the last few years that Woody Johnson has a little bit of an infatuation with Jim Harbaugh. He, of course, is still in the UK, but his ambassadorship there is going to end soon. And I think that's part of the reason why you've seen, the Jets a little slow to make any sort of big moves, within their football operation. But whenever that comes, I would think Woody Johnson would at least want to kick the tires on Jim Harbaugh. Remember, he interviewed Jim Harbaugh well before there was NFL interest in him. He actually interviewed him all the way back in 2009 when Harbaugh was still new at Stanford. They wind up hiring Rex Ryan at that point, but Woody sort of kept an eye on Harbaugh throughout. So I don't know if Harbaugh's issues the last couple of years at Michigan would cause him to back off of Harbaugh, but I do know that there was that feeling there and that Woody's kept tabs on him over the years. And then the other one I think is sort of obvious, which is the Chicago Bears. I think if there was one job that Jim Harbaugh would really want in the NFL, among the ones that potentially could be open, I think the Bears would be really, really attractive to him because he played there, because he was a first-round pick there, and because he had great admiration for the coach he played for there, Mike Ditka. So those would be the two that I would sort of keep an eye on just off the top. If Harbaugh was going to leave Michigan and go back to the NFL, would be the Jets and the Bears.
Carson Wentz, you owe him a lot of money. I was just saying, I understood when they signed him. There were risks, but his trajectory, completion percentage, passer rating, yards per game, all went up. And then last year, it should be noted, he had, over 20 touchdowns, 7 picks, 4,000 yards, throwing to backups and scout team guys. I don't know what's wrong. Does he have a backup quarterback complex with Foles and Jalen Hurts? I have no idea. But again, what are their options in Philadelphia?
They're married to him contractually, so they have to make this work. And, I think there was always going to be some level of change in coaching there. I'm starting to wonder if it might happen at the top. I think that there's going to be a real deep dive into what's gone wrong this year, why the trajectory is where it is. Going from the Super Bowl to getting knocked out in the second round last year, getting knocked out in the first round. I think that the owner there, Jeffrey Lurie, is going to really want to take a real look at everything that's gone wrong in the organization. And obviously Carson, because of the investment they have in him, is going to be a huge part of that. Again, they're married to him for next year. They're married to him the year after that. That's why, going to Jalen Hurts for 2 plays yesterday didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But really, I think for right now, they've got to commit themselves to trying to make it right. Yeah, they lost Andre Dillard and Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson, and the skill position players aren't right now. But, when you pay a quarterback that much, Colin, part of the deal is he's going to have to make do with less. He was able to do it last year. He hasn't been able to do it this year. And really, because, again, they're married to the guy for the next couple of years, it's incumbent on them to figure out why.
Yeah, but 3 offensive linemen they thought would start are not there, and this is part of what you saw last night. Wentz is always forced to make quicker throws. Albert Breer, great talking to you, bud.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it.
We're really seeing something in sports. There's all these new GMs. There's a